The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers. Each life we incarnate into has a divine purpose. For the majority of people on this planet, their purpose has eluded them. We have become so distracted with the struggle to survive that we have forgotten what we are here to do. In alignment with the sacred laws of nature, the ultimate purpose of all existence is to create and evolve. We certainly do not incarnate into life with the intention to destroy. And yet, we have come to live in a very destructive world. As a result, there are many out there who feel lost or adrift, whilst knowing deep down inside that something is very wrong with their reality. Many people wish they could do something of value, anything that is purposeful, instead of having to submit to a system of slavery in order to survive. It is important never to let go of that feeling. That is your soul crying out to you, telling you that your life has value and that you do indeed have a purpose. The most important thing you can do in life is to recognize your purpose, and often that requires a lot of soul searching. Life indeed dishes out some pretty tough challenges, which will either move you closer towards your purpose path, or will give you great training for when you finally realize what it is that you came here to do. But more often than not, the very clues about your life's purpose are hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of our existence. But we are so easily distracted by irrelevant details that don't really matter, that often we miss the very obvious right in front of us. It is because of our willful ignorance of anything that does not fit our preconceived ideas that the truth about the nature of our reality is so readily hidden in plain sight. This is a very deep and personal journey, which has come to be expressed in many aspects throughout my life. This is not just an attempt to retell a bunch of research and pass it off as my own, for I am very grateful and openly acknowledge all the many wonderful people that I have been given the opportunity to work with and to learn from in order to get to the point where I've come to know what I now know. This is a journey I was always destined to go on, and likewise, how I have come to know this information forms as much a part of the story as the information itself. Hello and good evening, everybody. My name is Nelvi, and welcome to yet another episode of Dragonology. We are broadcasting live from CCN headquarters here in the Netherlands. So a big hello to everybody all over the world. Wherever you may be, thank you for tuning in. Myself, my princess, and Biggie on the other side will be taking you through this episode tonight. This is episode 11 of a series which has been, wow, what a journey, even for me, because I've had to learn a lot of things. And we hope to continue carrying on for as long as this topic grabs people. So thank you to all of those people who have tuned in from all over the world. We seem to have gotten quite an intensive following of people. And wow, it's just so awesome that people have taken to the subject and really have been appreciating the correspondence, the interaction, and please keep it coming. Tonight's Dragonology focuses around the topic of angels and demons, okay? And this gets pretty interesting and controversial territory for some, perhaps. So, for anyone who has any pre-existing ideas or belief systems about the way the world works, yeah, this is probably not for you, but stick around because, if you're brave enough, this could probably take you down some interesting paths and we'll cover some very interesting territory, which I think, if you're not already abreast of this information already, certainly is going to make you question a few things, as it has done for me, because I suppose this entire thing for me, how I've gotten into this information has been through my own personal journey of discovery. And the theme of the ubiquitous duality is consistent throughout all our lives, throughout all mystery religions, through everything we do. There's light and dark in everything. And this has been expressed in many aspects throughout my life, including in my book, The South African Guide to the Global Conspiracy. Book 1 was actually called Light and Dark. And you may notice this artwork on the front here is actually a painting which I painted in 1995, so it's 20 years old. And it was the year after I recovered from a car accident which put me in a wheelchair for a year. Interesting things happened to me after this car accident. One of the things that happened was I never went back to church. But this was a sort of imagery that was coming to me. And this book was only published in 2010. So we're talking about 15 years between when the picture was painted and when the book was published. But even back then, the kind of imagery that was coming to me intuitively to paint is interesting because look, you've got a moon and a sun on a scale, okay? Balance of light and dark. It's almost like I knew it on one level. Even if it wasn't a verbalized level, symbolically I understood it in my core being, and that was being expressed through my artwork. So I suppose why I'm going into explaining this is because I really want to set the stage for how much of a personal journey this is for myself, is understanding the whole aspect of duality. And like many people, I've throughout my life like to label and categorize and contextualize things so that you know how to treat them. If something is such and such a thing, you put it into that little box and then you treat it according to how you know that box has been labeled. And this is a bit of a problem because unfortunately we've been taught the wrong thing. So the way in which we react to certain labels, or in fact some of the ideas we have about certain things, is all based on completely flawed data and false information. And almost everything that we've come to know is completely the opposite of what we've been taught. Hence the Jesuit motto, black is white and white is black. Again, an expression of the ubiquitous duality, which is the underpinning factor of all mystery religions. I thought I'd read you here, again, just talking about the journey that I went on. I'd like to perhaps express that to people so they understand where it comes from and where the search within me comes from. And this isn't some kind of dark and narcissistic attempt to prove, some strange things by all accounts. There was a real deep needed search that has gone on here. And that'll become clearer as to why I've gone on this search towards the end of this presentation. So part of an extract from my book, The South African Guide to the Global Conspiracy, Book 1, Light and Dark, says, "It is difficult to know where to begin, as the boundaries of my journey are not defined. However, I will begin with my search to know and understand God. In one way or another, I guess we are all on this journey, whether we are aware of it consciously or not. For so long, I had been distracted by the physical material elements of my life. I had become so empty and proliferated with garbage that I had lost touch with what was real. Like most people, my conditioning ran deep, so it was quite a wake-up call to realize that many of the things I thought were real were nothing more than deceitful and distracting illusions, which had changed me to somebody I did not recognize. And thus, I began to question the world around me, contemplating the fact that there must be more to life than this. Is there a God? And if there is, where is he? How can the belief in an all-loving, all-powerful God be reconciled with the reality of undeserved suffering in the world? If God is good, perhaps he's not all-powerful. If God is powerful, then perhaps he cannot be wholly good." So with that in mind, yes, I see you, Kit. With that in mind, please take into account that the reason I have decided to go down this journey is not to label God as a monster or to demonize the creator, or be dark in any way. Actually, I think in clarifying, we shed light on some of the darkest areas. We shine light into those dark areas and therefore, by bringing it to public awareness and attention, that's all we're really doing. So that is the motivation behind what we're doing. And of course, the aim and how we go about this is by decoding language. We're able to identify the truths about gods, angels, and demons, cultural mythologies, and religions, which points to the indisputable fact that all share a common root in dragon worship. And of course, this is clearly determinable through an examination of etymology, philology, and symbolic expression. Okay? Etymology comes from the Greek word etymos, which means true. So if you look at the etymology of a word, you look to the truth of the word, what it really means, okay, by looking at the root words within words. Often words are made up of a number of earlier roots which have evolved, because that's all language has evolved. Our phonetic languages come initially, most of it, out of the Greek alphabet, and I beg your pardon, the phonetic sounds have come out of the Greek alphabet, but the Roman alphabet is what's given us the characters that we use today. And in fact, you'll find the Roman alphabet used in all of the languages that evolved from the original Latin. So philology, of course, would be a study of words. Etymos is obviously a study of word meaning through the study of root words. Philology is the actual study of words itself. And then, of course, symbolic expression. Before we had the alphabet, well, even the alphabet has symbols. So you can't really say that some symbols were used prior, but it was a form of writing. For example, Egyptian hieroglyphics is very pictorial, it is very symbolic, and often very allegorical. So in order to understand that, it's sometimes important to understand some of the key root aspects that pertain to things like the mystery religions, the ubiquitous duality, and of course, the universal study of dragonology. Sorry if this is a bit repetitive, but I do want to just make sure that everybody who is tuning in for the first time is up to date with where we are with what we call serpentine or dragon etymology. Okay, and there are a few new ones in there for people who have been following along, and it's good to recap. All right, so basically we always put dragon or serpent etymology in purple. And if I haven't explained this enough times as to the reasons why in previous episodes, you'll certainly get the idea of why I do it by the time we finish tonight. So from the top then, we've got the most common dragon root, which is the OR root, okay? And of course,
that transliterates into the ORU as in court or Ouroboros, and the AR, okay? And then we got the ORPH, the phi sound, which makes its way onto the end of the OR. That's the ORF root, which then also is read as the OFFY root when we drop the R. The I vowel sound transliterates and can be OPHY or O at the end or OPHA. And then, of course, the first three letters over there come onto the next line, which gives you feign, which gives you the root of pain, window pane, phantom, fey, and fairy. Then, of course, the most commonly approached root triad that we'll be dealing with tonight, which is the Pala, Para, Pio root. Okay, all dragon serpentine etymology. And then, of course, we've got the Kolo, Kolu, Kula, Kulu, Kali root. And, of course, examples of this would be Dracula and column or colony. And then we've got Jin, all right, the DJEN, which gives you Jin and its various spellings, and Jin with a GEN as in gene. And, of course, that can also be a GON. The E transliterates over to the O. The word Naga, a Pali or Sanskrit word for a serpent-like god or deity, very similar to the word naked. And, of course, the word snake is the word naked without the D and the S at the beginning. The common root here being the NA root, present in all three. And then, of course, Spiro is a word meaning dragon, and from that we have the word spiral, and sprite, spirit, and spit. And then Basileus, which is a Greek or Latin term for king or ruler. Basilica, which is a very special kind of Catholic cathedral. Basilisk, which is known as the king of serpents, capable of killing with a deadly glance, according to mythology. And then, of course, an obelisk, which is the word most similar to basilisk. And an obelisk is normally found outside a basilica, as is the case in the Vatican. And then the word Thi, which literally is a word that means God, and turns up as a root word in words such as theology, theosophy, and thelema. And tonight we're going to be focusing a lot on the ANG root, okay, which is the root of words such as angevin, angui, okay, which is a Latin word for snake, and angel. Right. We shall proceed. Right, the origins of angels. The modern English word angel is derived from its Latin root angelus, okay, via the Greek translation angelos, meaning messenger. Angelos means messenger, okay? Messenger comes back up again very shortly. Aliens and angels. Okay, are they the same? The word Zari means both angel and aliens. Okay, references both angels and aliens. Okay, and what we do have is some interesting depictions coming up in medieval art. I'm referencing these things over here. Okay, here's Jesus on the cross with the angels all around, some angels over there. Here's another one over there. So pop to the next picture so you can see the references to these guys, which appear to be people in spaceships. Interesting. Angels and light. Angels and light are inextricably linked, and this is very evident in the Aramaic word zari, which is cognizant with the Arabic word zao, or sao, meaning light. Now, also remember, sao is the root of sauros, which is the Latin word for lizard. And saurus, for example, would then be the root of something like Tyrannosaurus when you talk about dinosaurs. So manifestations of the radiant angel are represented by shining, flaming, or burning, and are signified with light-themed adjectives. Light sometimes represents or is represented by a halo or aureola, and that's aureola goes around the entire body as represented here, and a halo normally just goes around the head. It can be a round circular disc of light, in Arabic and Indic depictions, and they can be depicted as flaming as opposed to circular in shape, or perhaps like sun rays. All right. So what you've got here is halos or aureoles are often representative of another symbolic allegory, but they can be depicted as fire, sun, clouds of illumination, and what they actually mean or represent is enlightenment, of which is or sacred knowledge, normally held only by holy personages. And this is where you start having things like language and literature playing into this whole lot. And of course, light and fire, we covered this off last week. The word torch contains the dragon root word or. Many gods are represented holding a torch. The torch is a symbol of light, enlightenment, illumination, the Illuminati, and of course, sacred knowledge. Now, the word angel is cognizant with the Latin word angui, okay, which we spoke about already, means snake or serpent. The words anguish and angry stem from this root, stem from the angui root. All right, so are angels good? Are angels bad? The words anger and anguish give reference to the necessary sacrificial atonement in the form of burnt offerings or holocauster, right? And thank you to my dear friend Dee, if you're watching, because she was the one that gave me the next bit of information, which is the fact that the word holocaust, which simply means burnt offering, all right, and turns up 359 times in the Latin Vulgate Bible. Okay, so in the Bible, they talk about burnt offerings, and this could be human offerings, all right? Well, that's what, the Holocaust in Germany was. It was, millions of people killed kind of thing. So interesting this. As we mentioned earlier, language plays into this inextricably, and the language of the angels. Let's talk about the language of the angels, right? English is the language of the angels. Pardon me, my cat's coming in front of the screen here. Come on, sweetheart. English is the language of the angels. The Dutch word for angel is engel, right? And I'm South African, and I live in Holland, so I speak Afrikaans and Dutch. And in Afrikaans, the word for angel is also engel. So it's the same in Dutch and in Afrikaans. Angel is engel in Dutch. And of course, the Dutch word for English, ironically enough, is engels. So what we got here is the Dutch word for English and angel are the same. All right, what does that say? That English is the language of the angels. This can be further demonstrated. England, the word England originates with the term meaning land of angels, or Angelson, all right, which is a more Welsh spelling, from where you get the word Anglican. Now let's talk about Anglican. Obviously, the seat of the Anglican Church, head of the seat, is normally the Archbishop of Canterbury. And the Archbishop of Canterbury answers to the Vatican and is head of the Church of England and the worldwide Anglican religion and community. So let's have a look at the word Anglican. Of course, you've already got the angel reference in there. It's interesting. Here we've got the can. All right, now the can is a root that we will explore more with time. I want to take you in future times into the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, and this will all become more relevant there. But basically, the root can comes up on the end of Anglican, Canterbury, Vatican, Canaan, okay? The Babylonian noun akan means a flaming seraph. All right, we spoke about burning, flames, fire, light. So what you're looking at here is a flaming serpent or a burning angel. Okay, so what this term here, this Babylonian noun references a burning angel. Melech, right. Very common Hebrew word for an angel, Melech. Melech is a Hebrew word for messenger as well, okay? It's more commonly known as a word for messenger than it is for angel. But the word Melech is often used as a name for an angel. And of course, the name Malachi stems from this root. Not a very common name, Malachi, but that's exactly where it comes from, the Melech root. And of course, Melech is similar to the word Moloch, all right? Except you got the M-A-L, M-O-L. We did this last week, which then transliterates into M-E-L, which is Mel, my name. All goes into each other. And of course, Moloch is represented as a bull god, sometimes a feminine bull god, to which people sacrifice their babies and in burnt offerings, in Holocausta as well, burn their children to Moloch. And representations of Moloch include the bull and the owl. Notice burning of the torches on the side. Ritual book in front here. But that's, yeah. This is obviously a picture of Bohemian Grove, quite a famous one. And this is a 200-foot stone owl, which is supposed to be a representation of Moloch. And this is where they would have these sacrificial offerings, where they put the bodies and burn them in the Holocausta, the burnt offerings, sacrificial rituals and offerings. You can see someone over here is wearing a papal mitre. And then, of course, they've got rituals called the cremation of care, various different types of rituals that go on at Bohemian Grove. And here is, again, another picture of this 200-foot stone owl that represents Moloch in these redwood forests. And of course, we spoke about the groves several times over the last few dragonologies. The term grove is highly significant in terms of representing a sacred place of worship. As we mentioned already, the root mol for Moloch, Malach for Malachi, and Mel, M-E-L, the root of Melusine and Melanie, my name. So let's look at Mel for a second. We covered this before, but just to recap. The word Mel means black or dark, all right? And examples of this playing out in words, melanoma or melanin. Melanin is a dark-colored skin pigment, and melanoma is a skin cancer which comes up black, very dark. Sometimes melanoma actually also forms in other parts of the body, but is typically a pitch black cancer. Melanosis is the process of going dark. Okay, that's what you're talking about here. If something is going through melanosis, it is darkening. Now, the word caramel is interesting because when you talk about you make caramel, it's the most simple thing to make. It's cooking cream and sugar together. And as the sugar darkens, so it is said to caramelize. Another example of this is, if you watch cooking shows, you would have heard them talk about, cook the onions until they start to caramelize. And that is when the sugars in the onions start to turn brown and the onions take on that beautiful brown color. And you get that sort of malted sweet color from the sugars starting to burn. And that's caramelized onions. So a process of going dark or darkening or black, okay? Those three words basically describe all those things in different contexts. Okay, the word mel, as we spoke about already, from this root, the word mel in the ancient Persian language means leader or ruler. Now remember, kings, rulers, dragons, royalty, all inextricably linked with each other. And we start to go into interesting territory here because we now go into the Persian Empire, one of my most recently favoritely discovered parts of the world that sort of you don't get a lot of information about, but lots have come out of the Persian Empire, which has kind of been hidden, but you just have to kind of look through the etymology and you find things. So in ancient Persia, okay, so we get into the Persian stuff here, the word mel meant leader or ruler, and the area formerly known as Persia was also known as Parsa, Okay, that's how it was spelled. Persia or Parsa takes its name from the root, okay, Pala, Para, Pio root. We covered this off extensively over the last few dragonologies. Okay, so it is a dragon root triad of words. And just to kind of give you an idea of where the Persian Empire lay, the boundaries are not really defined as such, but around sort of the eastern parts of the Mediterranean, up along the Red Sea, and sort of below the Caspian Sea, and particularly the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, very interesting things came out of the Caucasus Mountains. And yeah, it's kind of this whole area here. Yeah. What's interesting to notice is that, I should just pop back, Persia is actually largely modern day Iran. Now, has anyone been to Iran lately? I mean, you don't go down to your local tourist agency and book a trip to Iran for, summer vacation to run around in your bikini. You get arrested if you do that kind of stuff there. You can't even dance. Music's not allowed. That's how repressive it is there. But what I would say is it wasn't always like that. The key religion in the Persian Empire was actually Zoroastrianism, which heavily focused on the aspect of the ubiquitous duality, much like the ancient Egyptian religions. But what's interesting to notice is in the political scene that we currently have playing out is that there's constant threats to attack Iran, but they never actually do. Okay, and there's a reason for that. All right, it's because the highest of the black nobility dragon families have castles and homes in the ancient lands of Persia. And the way to keep everybody away from there is to basically make Iran a very difficult place to go visit by international standards. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting stuff there. The reason why it's not really, people don't go to Iran on holiday, there's a reason for it. They don't encourage it. They want to keep people aware. There's secrets there. I can tell you now, you've got a lot of what was done with the Nazis, with Hitler, in terms of the Americans going in and looting and pillaging these ancient sites of their amazing antiquities. And there's a lot of that going on in this part of the world at the moment, constantly turning up all sorts of stuff and carting it away to keep our history hidden from us. All right, and a good example of this, I mean, look at this amazing ruins. You can just see how they're carved into the bedrock here. Okay, floors. This is actually carved into a mountain. An amazing ruin of a city, which is just, I wish I could go there. Just phenomenal. This is the one wish I do have is I had such a great time researching all this stuff and putting these lectures together, but I'd really love to visit some of these places that I talk about. Beautiful carvings, carved in stone, stories, whole stories, rituals, rites, ceremonies relating to Zoroastrianism, amazing carvings of dragons and griffins and all sorts going on in this ruin called Persepolis. All right, it's an ancient Persian city, the ruins of an ancient Persian city, and you can see these beautiful big solid stone lintels which have survived being sacked and ravaged and conquered and all sorts, but there it still is. You probably couldn't even get these things down if you tried. The kind of craftsmanship and skill to put this together. This was an amazingly wealthy, advanced empire in its time. And I wonder what happened to it. Like all things, war. Griffins at Persepolis. Look at these griffins. This to me is amazing to check the detail which these things have been carved. The stone is so hard, okay, to get this kind of smoothness. And for the stone to survive this long, okay, without too much damage, it has to be incredibly resilient to the elements, okay, wind, rain, sand. So it's a hard stone, therefore incredibly hard to craft. And these things were up on pillars at the top of big columns, and there were hundreds of these things with these griffins on the top, okay, carved like this. Very interesting. Now remember, griffins, just another symbol of the dragon, normally depicted with eagle wings and an eagle head, and then the body of a lion. And of course, the Persian Arabic version of an angel would be known as the Peri. The Peri are a race of fallen angels born of Iblis, and basically it's the Persian Arabic version of Satan, or the fallen ones. And of course, Persian mythology exists like in various parts of the world, and this would be the version of a Persian angel. Notice a crown on the head, but you see the wings here, okay? And this is a depiction of Peri, which is, of course, the angel Peri Banu, and Prince Ahmed. Okay, the color purple. Everyone wants to know why I'm so obsessed with purple. I've explained this all to you before, but you know what? Tonight we're just going to get that much deeper into it because we can, as we do. Purple. The color purple originated in Persia, okay? A lot of people say it originated with the Phoenicians. And all the Phoenicians they weren't themselves an eclectic race or group or one particular group or one particular area. The seafaring traders that became known as the Persians were actually Canaanites of various genetic descents, people from Canaan, along the coastal shores of Canaan, who then, of course, took to the seas and trading, and they traded in purple, which they got from Persia, all right? This was where purple was moved across the world, was by the Phoenicians, but it didn't originate with them. It originated in Persia, okay? The color purple originated in Persia, or Parsa, as it's also known. Purple in Dutch is known as Pars. That is how it's spelled. Look, Parsa, Pars. So the other name for Persia, which is Parsa, okay, is etymologically cognizant with the Dutch word for purple, Pars. Now, why is purple such an interesting color and one that has endless fascination for me? I'm just absolutely drawn to anything purple, and the New Age has damn well ruined purple for everybody, but nonetheless, I'm just drawn to it, and there is a reason for it. It's that I like things of a high vibrational frequency. That is what I resonate with, and that is what I'm drawn to. And purple is actually the color with the highest vibrational frequency. And there's a reason for that, okay? I'm going to explain this to you. Oh, hang on a second. I seem to have skipped. There we go. All creation happens between two polar opposites, as we have been talking about. Black and white, light and dark, okay, the ubiquitous duality. And why this plays into purple is because purple is made of the perfect synthesis of red and blue, which on the color spectrum are perfect opposites, okay, invisible light, all right? So red would be the opposite of blue. And of course, that is represented again, even further, by things like the fact that hot and cold taps are represented with red and blue, showing complete opposites of each other, the two extremes, okay, hot and cold, the duality. It is between 2 points of polarity that all creation takes place, constantly moving between these 2 points, okay? And when you have a perfect balance of hot, cold, light, and dark, that is when you're at your highest vibrational frequency, and that is what purple is. Purple. Purple is a color most often associated with royalty, magic, mystery, New Ages, and of course, dragons. Seen in some very interesting places. Often you'll find imperial robes, clothes of royalty, bedclothes, bedcloths, clothing for, covers that go on the beds, the walls of imperial bedchambers, all done in purple. That's very important. That's for a reason. Purple was also very expensive to make. Purple in Greek, okay, is known as porphyra, right? Spot the serpent root word in there, right? Purple in Greek is known as porphyra. Purple Latin is known as purpura. Okay, like purple, purpura. Porphyrogenitus. A couple of things going on here. Okay, first off, the term porphyrogenitus or porphyrogentia references being born in the purple. A good example of someone who was born in the purple was Constantine VII, and you can see Constantine here in the purple chambers being baptized. Okay, it's Constantine being baptized. And porphyrogentius, basically, you got the orf, serpent root word there, and then the gen is from the jinn root, which you find the root of gene. Now you're referring to the genetics here, the genealogy, the genome. So, of the orf being a dragon or serpent root word, okay, so of the dragon genome, that's what porphyrogentius actually means, all right? Besides meaning being born in the purple. Being purple-born was an honorific title in the Byzantine Empire given to children born after the father had become emperor or basileus. Let's take a look at the word emperor, okay? Emperor is all about the pur. That's from the pure root. Pala, para, pure root is the root that fits into emperor. And of course, we've spoken about basileus, okay, cognizant with basilisk. Of course, basileus in Greek and in Latin means ruler, king, or emperor, the ruling or reigning basileus. So if you were to be considered purple-born, it didn't matter if you're born to the king and before they became the emperor, then you weren't considered purple-born. Only if you were born whilst they were reigning, and then you were the most likely to be the next reigning king, emperor, basileus. And this applied to the girls as well. What you normally find is they only marry, okay, porphyrogentius with porphyrogentius. Okay, they try to keep it that way for a very specific reason. Those of the porphyrogentius bloodlines were usually married to other porphyrogentius suitors in order to keep the bloodlines, oh, look at this word, pure. All right, where do we find the word pure coming from? Let's go back a bit. Purpura, that is where the word pure comes from. Yeah, it's rooted in the Latin word purpura, which is a Latin word for purple. So you talk about keeping the bloodlines pure. I'm sure everyone's heard that expression even before you knew about dragonology, reptilians, or whatever it is you want to call conspiracy theories or non-conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's heard about keeping the bloodlines pure, okay? And that is what it's referencing. It's got nothing to do with the blood being dirty, and therefore it's got to be pure. The pure is referencing pure. They've got to be purple-born, all right, which means of royal blood, which means generally the dragon bloodline. This is a depiction here. You can see in the purple bedchambers, covered in purple bedclothes, and we saw the christening of Constantine. This is, of course, the deathbed of Constantine also. So from cradle to grave, he was surrounded by purple because he was purple-born. Okay. Pure purple. The word pure originates with the Latin word purpura, which means purple. Okay, so pure blood. Now you know what pure blood means when they talk about it. They're of pure blood. Okay. Pegasus. Pegasus stems from Pala, para, pio group of dragon root words. Okay, and Pegasus, of course, the flying horse, originates in Greek mythology and is said to be the messenger of the gods. Again, like an angel. Pegasus is just another symbolic representative of the dragon, much like angels. Angels are depictions of, are symbolic representatives of the dragon or the winged serpent, and much the same can be said about Pegasus or the winged horse. and is said to be the messenger of the gods, just like the angels. Okay, and it's interesting because if you look at the word horse, all right, the word horse contains it contains dragon root words in several languages, okay, which is very interesting because it shows you how important the horse was in symbolism through the etymological allegory. In English, the word horse has obviously the most common dragon root, the OR root. The word horse in Dutch is paard, okay? Now remember, purple is paars, right? So paard, obviously, where does that come from? That's from the pala-para-piol root, okay? So horse in English is from the or dragon root. In Dutch, horse comes from the pala-para-piol root, all indicative of dragon etymology. That's where they're rooted. So that's what the horse is a symbolic representative of. In the Dutch language, purple and horse are etymologically, are cognizant with each other, okay? So purple in Dutch is paars, and horse in Dutch is paard. Look how similar those words are to each other, okay? All right. We're going to deal with the concept of divine and divinity, all right? The gods are said to be divine or have divine powers, as are the angels, which, of course, generally references having abilities that are considered supernatural or that human beings don't, for example, have. And we've, over the past 10 Dragonology episodes, spoken a lot about certain abilities and themes, very distinctive themes which have come up, which reference very key abilities or characteristics which we as human beings don't really appear to have or be able to access. One of them is the ability to change shape or shapeshift, which is commonly referenced as metamorphosis or therianthropy. The other quality, which is interesting to take note of, is that divine beings seem to be able to have, is the ability to appear and disappear, sort of materialize out of thin air like spirits, ghosts, and phantoms, which, by the way, are all dragon root words. So these are considered divine abilities or divine powers. Let's have a look at the word divine. It is incredibly interesting because this takes us down some interesting roads. First off, we have been covering groves and the Garden of Eden. We've done it to death. But you know what? We have to just go down this road one more time of looking at the fruit aspect because it comes up and I have to expand on it tonight again. All right. Divine. The word vine is in divine. So, of course, vine, grapevine. We dealt with grape a lot. Okay. The grape vine is a symbol of the bloodline, the holy dragon royal bloodline. Okay. You see grapes wrapped around columns quite often, spiraling around columns. Lots of allegory there. So the spirals, okay, and then of course column, which is a dragon root word, and then the grapes going around them. Well, you know, they're trying to tell us something. They don't just put those there because they like to wrap grapes around columns. It's specifically symbolic of something. So grapes and vines are symbolic of the dragon bloodline. And of course, as we pointed out, and we extended this theme last week, and we'll go into it a bit again, the word rape is etymologically cognizant with the word grape, right? It's rape and grape. Very important that. Of course, we've covered the word pair almost to death, but just one more time. The word pair translates into several different spellings in different languages. And a good example, of course, pair in Dutch would be, for example, spelled the way you would spell peer in English, which would reference to look actively, to peer at something, you know, peered over my shoulder, which is basically a verb for active looking. And then, so that's the Dutch word for pair and it's singular. Pieren is the plural. It's many pairs. All right. And of course, we've spoken about how this takes, pair takes a pala-para-piol root. Gone through that quite a few times. And of course, we've covered apples off. You know, you can't talk about serpents without talking about apples and the Garden of Eden. But let's have a look. Apple. The word apple is rooted in the word afa, which basically means is cognizant with the word viper, and that's what it means. Afa, viper. You can kind of see how they've evolved into each other. But that also gives rise to the words ava, which can be spelled like this as well with an A-V-E, and of course Eve. So apples and Eve, Garden of Eden, they all tie in together. And as if it wasn't enough that it's grapes, pears, and apples, think about the most common fruits that you get. Okay, peaches, some of the most common fruits out there, over 100 different varieties of these things. The word peach referencing the fruit, the word referencing the fruit commonly known as a peach, P-E-A, contains and originates in the pala, para, pio dragon root word group, okay? Because if you put an R there, that would be pear. So peach has the first three letters of pear, and pear originates in this dragon root word triad. And what is the next most common fruit you can think of? Go on, I dare you to think of it. That's right. The king of fruits, known as the king of fruits for some very specific reasons, okay? The fruit commonly referenced as an orange contains the most common dragon root word. Now, there is a reason why this color, particular color, I beg your pardon, why the word orange is used for the House of Orange in Holland, okay? And it's because of this serpentine root word that's actually in it. But also this looks like a sun. Okay, if you actually look at how this goes out, which is why it's known as the king of fruits, because it actually looks a bit like a sun. And of course, the next most common fruit you'd probably mention would be a banana. Yes, even the humble banana is not free from dragon allegory. The word banana is also rooted in dragon etymology. The Hebrew word anas means raper or rapist. Okay, we've already spoke about the word grape. Let's go back a bit. Okay, as we spoke about here, grape has the word rape in it. All right, so let's just go through the fruit one more time. So you can see the 5 most common fruit. You've got grapes, pears, apples, peaches, a big one, 6, oranges, and bananas. 6 different fruit with serpentine or dragon etymology. It can't be a coincidence. The Roman word rapere means to pillage or rape. Rapere evolved from the early Roman word rapere, okay, meaning reptile, and pere, okay, with N on the end. If you just take the P-E-R-E, put the N on the end, that's pieren, which is Dutch plural for pear. So you can see where all the roots come in and how that all languages interwoven this sort of tapestry into each other. But the theme of rape, a very specific thing, rape, follows through. The theme of dragon and rape are universal and repeated in all cultural mythologies, okay? The taking against the consent, all right? The harvesting of energetics, all of that ties into the rapage of humanity. And of course, we've spoken about this before. The Roman word rapere, meaning rape, is etymologically cognizant with the word reaper. And the Grim Reaper is also just another expression of a dragon. And what's interesting to notice is that his sickle is banana-shaped. Now, this also gets very interesting, okay? The per annas, all right? So you've got the annas word. Let me take you back for a sec. Annas, okay, which, as we've already determined, annas means rapist. It appears in banana. And then, of course, we've dealt with the pure, all right, being the root purpura, which is the Latin word for purple, or we talk about pure bloodline. So per annas, look at that. The per annas are ancient Hindu texts eulogizing various deities from Hindu mythology. Interesting. All right, let's look a bit more at the divinity thing. In religious terms, divinity is the state of things that comes from a supernatural power or deity, such as a god, creator, or spirits, and therefore regarded as sacred and holy. So that's the term actually taken directly from Wikipedia, the direct expression of what divinity means. Have a look at that, okay? Again, the word divine, going back into divine, the word divine stems from the Persian word div, right? Which is indicative of the Sanskrit word diva. I'm sure you've heard of people being called divas before. The word diva descends from the Proto-European word devos, meaning shining or to shine. All right, here we got the light allegory coming in again. All right, the light theme always turns up with these beings. The word day stems from this root word, I beg your pardon, stems from this word root. So day comes from this, and that is evident. Day, the word day is etymologically cognizant with deity, is it not? Yeah? So this is where it all comes from. Let me just pop back for a second. What's interesting to notice is it is this particular stem. It's the divine, divi, deva, devos stem, which for me is the most clear and cognizant link between the Indic and the European languages, linking them to a common origin, okay, a single language which evolved into different languages. And you can see it here. We'll go on to explain that a bit deeper. All right, Deva, just another variation of diva. All right, Deva. The old Persian word Deva means a demon or evil god. And it's typically a picture with wings. Again, always a human, a personal human-like countenance with wings, typical of an angel or a demon, or angels and demons. All right, the Deva and Devi. All right, the being known as a Devi in the Indic languages references a deity and is etymologically cognizant with devil. That's where you get the word devil from. All right, now notice here, you reference Deva as an evil god, right? The word devil has the word evil in it. The word divine references a godhead and is indicative of the Latin word deus, which in turn stems from the Vedic deity Dios, okay, Dios. It's said the same way, actually, Dios. It's just as it evolved, got a different spelling. Now, this is interesting because this would be, for me, the Greek Dios, or Zeus, as we'll go on to explain. Dios and Zeus are the same. All right, that's Greek. Dios is Vedic. This is Indic mythology. This is where they start to link into each other. Pay close attention, guys. We'll go fast here. All right. Deus, all right. Deus is Zeus. Deus and Zeus are the same. Okay. And it's the Greek primordial god. All right. But it originated in this guy here, the Vedic version, because the Vedic religion became before the Greek religion. In fact, we recently spoke to Sacha Stone, who was saying that he went into the oldest Vedic temple. It's like 10,000-year-old Vedic temple, predating any religion, and it's not open to the outside world, only to sort of very high priests, and he was invited in there. And he went down into the basement, and he said the entire basement, the whole monastery or temple and the catacombs was held up by women who were surrounded by serpents, with the serpent coming up over the head and eating them from the top. and this is what was holding up hundreds and hundreds of these carvings underneath this particular temple. All right, so the Vedic religions actually go way beyond the Greek and the Roman religions. And it's interesting to note that that's where the Dios or Dios came out of Dios. So then you got the Greek, Dios and Zeus, all right? And then when the Romans invaded Greece and took over all their gods, Dios or Zeus became Jupiter, okay? I beg your pardon. I just lost my place. Here we go. The Greek, when the Romans invaded Greece, Zeus became Jupiter. But then when Roman, Roman pantheism turned into Roman monotheism in the form of what we now know as Catholicism, and this happened at the Council of Nicaea in 333 AD, where they basically created the Christian religion, not as we know it, but a different version to, all they did was relabel the old pagan religion and try to make it seem like they were worshipping one God as opposed to many gods. So they turned it into a monotheistic religion. That's the biggest difference. It's just an epic rebranding and relabeling exercise, but also it was a chance to kind of demonize anything that wasn't sanctioned under Christian law, which was anything of the mystery school or anything considered or that could be relegated to witchcraft and stuff like that, hence witch hunts, etc. Going off track, but basically what we're saying here is all the gods originated from a similar point and have just gone through epic rebranding as they've been taken over by one nation to another as the mythologies have evolved. But ultimately, they're referencing the same primordial entity, okay? Here's a picture of St. Peter with the keys in his hands outside St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. What's interesting to notice is, and this is, I'm sorry for the bad picture, it is the only one I could find of the primordial Vedic god known as Dios, but what's interesting is his full name is Dios Peter, like Saint Peter or Jew Peter, all right? It's no coincidence. So this name, Dios Peter, has carried through to the current religion, because St. Peter is supposed to be the patron of the Catholic Church, the head of the Catholic Church. Okay? So Dios Peter is the primordial Vedic god, commonly referenced as Father Sky, husband of Prithvi, who's also known as Mother Earth, the two primordial gods as represented here. And notice the sun behind Dios, right? Sun god, right? We've seen that before. Horses, more horses. Yeah. And of course, Dios and Prithvi gave birth to the various chief deities or demigods. And of course, they are the father of day and night, or dawn and night. Sunrise, sunset, Horus and Set. Yeah. Prithvi would be the equivalent of Isis in the Egyptian religions. The last thing I'm going to cover off tonight, before we go, is some why it's important to know all of this, okay? Because know the language, know what it's saying. I'm going to read you something here. It's called the Divine Right of Kings. All right, understand now what divine means. All right, now that you understand what divine means, try to recognize what is being read to you in this next statement. The divine right or divine right of kings is a political and religious doctrine of royal and political legitimacy. It asserts that the monarch is subject to no earthly authority, deriving the right to rule directly from the will of God. The monarch is thus not subject to the will of their people, the aristocracy, or any other estate of the realm. According to this doctrine, only God can judge an unjust king. The doctrine states that any attempt to depose a king or restrict his powers runs contrary to the will of God and may constitute a sacrilegious act. The divine right is often expressed in the phrase, by the grace of God. Interesting. So, who are the gods that give the kings and queens this divine right, the powers? Okay. Now, most kings and queens and rulers of history have been of the specific dragon royal bloodline, and they've been given these particular positions by somebody else, the primordial god who was, gave birth to them, put them in place. The fallen angels are here on earth. So many ways to look at this, but it's very interesting. Very interesting. Go back and go through that whole thing of divine again and read this again. The penny will eventually drop why this is so important. Okay. All of this information is being detailed in the Encyclopedia of Dragonology, which is an epic work that I've been constructing for almost 8 years now. So please support, guys. It's a massive body of research, and we want to release it in a full color book. And of course, printing is expensive, and we would like to obviously get it out as far and wide as possible, but we can only print it in one language because this deals with every language from across the board. So help us get this particular project realized, because once you actually see how prevalent dragons are and you start looking into this information, it just becomes part of your natural acceptance, simply because you cannot ignore what is in front of you. You cannot ignore images carved in stone that repeat again and again and again in different parts of the world. And not everybody gets the opportunity to travel to these parts of the world to see these things for themselves. And indeed, I myself have gathered most of the stuff through research. I'd love to visit more of these sites, but for now, we can make this information available in a collected space, dedicated to educating people and helping them untangle themselves from the deconfusing level of reality that has been projected upon us. And of course, we have the Untangled Gathering, which happens on the 27th of June. And this one is called Origins, and it deals with the hidden history of human origins. And I will be speaking at this event. So please do come along, guys. Get yourself all registered up online at Tug Events. Tug.events. Find all the details about the upcoming speakers and upcoming events. And reserve your front row seat to the best university on earth. We've got some amazing speakers lined up. So it's going to be a good one. And of course, if you missed anything, all our shows are available on high definition downloads at effiemarket.com. So please, guys, feel free to help yourself to a high definition version of Dragonology at effiemarket.com, or become a monthly pledger and have complete unlimited access to all the high definition archive recordings that are available from CCN. We've recently launched the Network Support Fund to help support the network of alternative media journalists who constantly put their lives on the line to bring us the information that helps us understand the true nature of the world, and also to free and empower us. And it's simply unacceptable that these people are left homeless and without the basics such as internet to do their work. And this is happening more and more to these people who constantly put their necks out to get this information to us. So CCN has launched the Network Support Fund, and we urge and encourage people to please support the network of alternative media journalists who are struggling at the moment. We have our very dear friend Lisa Harrison, who's living out of her car, and she's a doyen of alternative media, and we really would like to help her out and get her stable and fully focused back on her work here at CCN. And of course, we thank all of you for supporting free and independent media. Please go to the big red heart on our website and donate if you want to. And coming up next is our new program called The Consciousness of Economics. And it's supposed to be really good. And it's a brand new show. So we're really excited and very happy to have that time slot, 11 p.m. on Thursday evenings filled. So welcome to Bridget, and looking forward to your show, which airs directly after mine. And of course, if you've missed anything or you want to see when all the shows are broadcasting, please check out CCN's broadcast guide, which is available on our website, which is consciousconsumernetwork.tv. As always, guys, we thank you for tuning in for another episode of Dragonology. We'll be back next week for episode 12. So until then, that is it from me, Mel V. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
Who are we? What are we? Why are we here? How did we get here? When did we begin? In the beginning there was nothing, and then out of the darkness of nothing there was a singularity that was light, and that light expanded to become all. Are we beings created of earth and clay? Were we created by a benevolent God of ancient origin? Were we created in a lab and set loose upon the earth as experiments, as slaves, as beings of light? Our history lies buried in the sands of the past. It is hidden by time, blurred by those who would seek to create a history that they can control. We live entwined in a sticky web that binds our past and shackles our present in an elaborate deception of what isn't and never was. History has been written by the victor, yet who is the victor that has been writing our history? To untangle the web that binds us now, to search for freedom, we must first reach back to the beginning to unravel the mysteries of how it all began. Now, we search for answers. Origins. So it begins at the Untangled Gathering.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live-streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN high-definition downloads. You can now purchase a high-definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting